Hello, this is my third debriefing video for this week's trip to Roaring Spring. I actually cut it short. There were three or four places that I usually stop at that I didn't because what was most important when I went was what I'm going to tell you about now. As soon as I left Mervin's place, I went straight to the site of the Roaring Spring paper mill cleanup. Um, and noted that it's really coming along fine. Uh, I drove down in and saw that the car that Jeff Wendell rents and drives was there, and I thought, good, he's here, because I wanted fairly urgently to propose something to him. So I went in, and he was on the phone, but he said, no, wait, he'd talk to me. And so I sat down and waited. And then after a while, I went in. And I said to him, I sort of started, in my mind, I'd started my spiel. And I said, I know a way that I can increase the value of your property when you go to sell it, by a good bit. And he said, well, I already have my buyer, and we've already negotiated the price. It kind of shut me up right there. Oh, well, as far as the value of your property is concerned, then I guess it wouldn't matter. Now that's not what I said. I was just thinking about it, but I still said, well, I'd like to tell you what I had in mind, uh, uh, and I started by saying, do you know what it means? Do you know what the word pollard means? And he said, no, I don't. I've almost never run into anybody who speaks English in the United States who knows what pollard means. They might be a little bit more likely to know what that word keeps coppicing means. I might have said, how about coppicing? He said, no, I don't know that either. Well, I said it's when you cut a tree off, but you don't cut it off the ground. You cut it off about 2-3 feet high. It depends. And that way you don't kill the tree, and sprouts come up. It's a different way of foresting, actually. He said, well, that's kind of that sounds like what happened up on the mountain, because he explained that his extensive logging of that mountainside was very tightly controlled. The loggers were not allowed to cut those trees down at the stump level. He couldn't remember exactly how high they had to cut them, but they had to cut them high. And I said, well, that sounds like coppicing. But then I went on to say, that bank up there between the parking lot and the site that you're cleaning up has got brush and trees coming up through it. And I think it should be coppiced. And I have volunteers from the town of Roaring Spring or from Morrison's Cove, two professionals that I've spoken to that would help me, who would do this as a voluntary effort. And what would they have it in it? Well, to make the site more beautiful and to make it so Roaring Springers could, from the parking lot, watch the development now that it looks so good. And they could see it gradually coming on. And I explained that now you can see, because the leaves are all off the trees, because you can see down through there and see what's going on. But later on, soon, when the leaves come out, you're going to have to walk the whole way to the end of the parking lot to look down into seeing what's going on there. And if it were coppiced, there would be a view for people from that parking lot. They could even wave to the steam engine train that goes up through, wave to the passengers, and the passengers would see the town. But it's all going to get closed up as soon as the leaves come out. But right now it wouldn't be hard to do. We could coppice all that stuff. He listened, and he said, well, it's not up to me anyway. He said that whole triangle, or that whole parcel up there, not just the parking lot, but that whole parcel was leased, and that would be up to the leaseholder to do something like that. And that leaseholder has the first option to buy. So, I really couldn't, I couldn't really help you with that. I had explained too that that bank is very steep between the parking lot and the train track and the train station. It's very steep. And if that were ever cut off at the stump, that would do a lot to damage the ability of that bank to be stable. And he said, well, that was the case up there on the mountain. It was because of erosion. It was he was allowed a certain amount of area, I think, to run his roads, but it was because they want those trees there and living. He didn't say living, but to hold for their roots to hold that mountainside. Um, well, so anyway, he had said, but he'd said, well, in a way, we like it blank like that, so people can't be looking down in all the time at what we're doing. Uh, and and I said, yeah, but it's looking so nice now when it was just a whole big pile of scrap steel all twisted up, and I can understand that, but now it's looking so nice. And the other thing I said, you could tell your buyer, demonstrate to your buyer the goodwill of the community of Roaring Spring, since it could be a voluntary effort, volunteers, to do that, to begin the beautification of that site. But it has to be done in the next month, basically the next month, maybe two, because once that closes in, it'd be a very hard project. So anyway, I said, okay, well, it sounds to me like I should talk to the leaseholder. I actually know who she is, although I've never officially met her. And he said, yeah, do that, and tell her then to talk to me. And he finally said, I wouldn't be against it. And I went out a little discouraged, saying, oh, well, I didn't get his wonderful, okay, yes, do it. Because I've got the volunteers. I can get those volunteers. It could be an exciting public Pollarding party. It would be fun and enliven the community. So I went out a little bit discouraged, but then I remembered that he finally said, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Well, that means it's going to fall in the hands of the woman who owns that lease, or holds that lease. And, well, I'll definitely talk to her. And I think there's some problem with them actually not wanting people in the parking lot that aren't actually going to the vault and the brewery and places up there. That's basically only for them. And so in a way, I wasn't sure. I was left kind of unsure. They had started just a little bit last year, just to get the briars and stuff that were coming right over the fence, to cut them off. I imagine that was a nasty job if it was done after the leaves were on. So anyway, we'll see where it goes. I'm going to try to post about this in Only in a Cove on that Facebook page, and eventually, before long, I'm going to speak to the woman that owns that lease, holds that lease. Bye for now.